to try though. I love it. See, you're proving my point. Thank you. This is Jean Bartik. She came and spoke at the Computer History Museum. She's brilliant. She was one of the original ENIAC programmers. And this is probably one of the only times I'm going to know something that y'all don't know. So, so this is Jean Bartik. She came and spoke. Now, originally, when they took the first photographs of the ENIAC, they had the women standing by it, and the person who wrote the news story about it thought that they were just refrigerator models. Refrigerator models is a man of life standing there making it look beautiful. They didn't understand they're actually there plugging in the little vacuum tubes and following the instructions and doing what they need to do. And nobody's really bothered to correct it. Recently there's been a little bit of news about it, but nothing that big. And it's just like how Linux runs. There's not a lot of news about it. There's some. We have no idea. Maybe in history, in time will tell, we'll come back and we'll say, oh, wow. Look at that Ohio Linux Fest. That was one of the first, like Mad Dog was showing us some pictures yesterday of Linux and some of the original times. We'll be able to look back and say that. Now, the one story I wanted to share with you from Jean Bartik is that the very first time they showed off their code, of course, the first thing that they were programming for was to calculate missile trajectories, because of course that's what we spend money on. And so she said they pulled their first late-nighter. They stayed up till, I forget what it was, like 9 p.m. It's like, ooh, first all-nighter. So they're working really, really late, so the next day they could show off their program to the people who paid to fund it. And she said that they had one last bug that they just couldn't solve, but they just had to go through and show it anyway. And they said it calculated the missile trajectory correctly, but when it hit the ground, it just kept going. That was the one bug they couldn't solve. Anyway, so back to, I've talked to you about education, where most companies focus their energy, and I'm trying to encourage you to help out there if you possibly can. But I'd like to share with you a couple stories that will hopefully hit home and hopefully give you an image of what else we're programming for. In our early days, I got a phone call from a lady, you could tell she was older, and she said, I think she said she's late 60s, early 70s. And she said, please be gentle with me. Is there any chance you could actually talk to me? And I could tell she was afraid that I was going to, I don't know, give her over to some robot or something instead. She was just shocked that she'd actually gotten to talk to a person at a computer company. And she said, will you please be gentle with me? I want to buy a computer, but I need to know that I'm talking to a human being. And I said, yes, I'm a human being. I can help you. What can I help you with? And she said, I'm going to need some help, but I'd like to buy a computer. So I got a computer. She called back later to get another one. And she said, I'm hoping one of my older friends. Like, okay, older than 70, bring it on. But the thing she said that hit home, she said, is she doesn't have time to waste. I got to thinking, hey, wait a minute. This is a 70, 80-year-old person who doesn't want to spend her last days on Earth messing with bugs. That's who you're programming for. And that just really hit home. It's not just, and since we're not corporations, since we don't have to worry about, budgets and how long a person's going to live and whether or not we convert them to the software when they're young or when they're older, we don't have to worry about that. And I got another call, and this one just happened, I think, a couple months ago. I had a guy call in, and you could tell by his voice that he was older. And the poor guy, I don't answer the phone much anymore. I have people far more competent answering the phone now. But he called in, and you could tell he was older, and he told me, he said he needed about 10 minutes to explain how frustrated he was and how tired he was of getting viruses. He said, I just don't have time for this. And he cried. And I thought, oh my goodness. I hear you. I feel your pain. If there was any way I could communicate to the developers how important their work is, it's not just solving puzzles. It's not just contributing to the code base. It's not just making something that the stock market and ATMs can run off of. You're actually helping real people who need some relief. It's nice to help a lady in suburbia who has 9 computers for her kids to play their games after school and who's frustrated with those computers and is spending time working on the computers instead of taking them to the park. But you're helping that guy who just had it and needed a computer that worked, and you guys got it for him. Now, are you ever going to get thanks for what you're doing? Probably not. The ultimate test of a man's conscience may be his willingness to sacrifice something today for future generations whose words of thanks will not be heard. Now you're sacrificing for not just future generations, but for people today. And you probably won't hear the thanks, and I hope that you heard a little bit of thanks in my talk. I hope you heard the thanks loud and clear. We're very appreciative. Now, in running through this presentation, I did run into a bit of a problem. You all are probably going to want to know what's on the other side of that t-shirt. The other side of the t-shirt says exactly what the back of the t-shirt says. Which we found particularly funny when we first got it, which is the same as when you started out in coding. You know, you think it's funny when people come in and they're not very smart and they don't know how to do things. And then you've been here a while and you recognize, you know what, it's just actually not that fun to make fun of other people. And then when it hit home with us is when my son and I were out on a walk, and this sweet little lady walked up to us. She read the front, she walked around, she read the back, she walked back around, read the front. It's like, oh, this isn't fun. So, why do we contribute to FOSS? Because generally, on a personal scale, it improves our quality of life. For us, for me, it improves my quality of life. That's why I do it. I appreciate greatly knowing about the people who are benefiting from it also. Now, after I had that root canal last week, and I was sitting in between a doctor who didn't even know what a knee was, and a dental assistant who thought it might be an animal, I was driving out of Utah, and I saw this sign. And that did my heart good. Do you know Lennox? And so we do see a little bit more public awareness of Linux from time to time, and it does feel really good. But I just want to communicate to you, if at all possible, that the public awareness isn't necessarily the most important thing. What's most important is what you guys do every day, talking to other people about it, contributing to the code base, doing whatever it is you do. No matter who you are, whether you're that guy over there, Bradley Coon, who is essentially the Robin Hood of GPO violations, you're tracking him down. Rick, go to his talk later, he's hilarious, he's fun. Whether you're him, whether you're Beth Lynn, having a roar from time to time about all the different projects she's doing. Ohio Linux Fest is a roar. No matter what you're doing, your voice is heard, and it's cumulative. It adds up. Now, for the last thing I have, make sure I don't keep you guys like, okay, good. The last thing I have is if you guys could come with me for just 1 minute. We're in Berkeley, California, right in the shadow of UC Berkeley, which means we got PhDs helping us. We hire from a school of people with disabilities. The reason why we hire from a school of people with disabilities is because we've found, it's a good thing to do, but also there are many things in building computers where you need someone with OCD to work on it. You need someone with autism to work on it. You need somebody who can sort screws for 3 or 4 hours and think it's the best thing they've done all day. You know, that sort of thing. So we hire from there, we hire from UC Berkeley, we hire from everywhere. But we're in UC Berkeley. This right here is a road in UC Berkeley. A beautiful tree-lined road. And if you guys could come with me for just a second, this is kind of the crux of my talk. What I did the other day is my husband and I found this road, and after we found it, the first thing I did is go out and grab one of my kids. I brought all 4 kids back separately. Started at the front of at the beginning of the sidewalk. I said, here, let's just walk up and down this road. Come on, it'll only take a minute. You can get back to your games really soon. And started walking. I started off with, do you remember what it was like when you were a kid? Do you remember who your first grade teacher was? Do you remember your fifth? Do you remember what it was like in 5th grade? Do you remember what it was like for you when you first went into middle school? Was it hard? Was it easy? What about high school? What did you do then? When I get to the end of that road, we start to cross the street, and I said, okay, now this is present day. We walk across the road in sevens. We start going down the other side of the road, and that's where they realize, oh, my mom's trying to teach me something. We go down the other side of the road, and I said, well, what do you think you're going to do next week? What about next month? Well, what's your plan for next year? What about after high school? What about college? What about, you know, your life? What are you going to do for a job? Are you going to be a Dilbert? Are you going to be are you going to backpack across Europe? What are you going to do? And so we talk as we're going along, and I just guide the conversation chronologically. And then we're starting to get to the end of the road, and you see the look on their face, where they come to grasp with, oh my goodness, I'm on a road and it's going to end, which is something that never occurs to you when you're a kid. Never occurs to you. Nobody in our family died. They haven't seen it before. We had a cat die, but that's it. So we get close to the end of the road. They're starting to think about it, and somebody had spray painted on the road